Thank you, Madhu, for this opportunity. It's an honor to speak in front of all of you. I'm going to break this down into three parts. The first part is going to be about my career at Facebook, and then how photography came into the picture parallelly, and then how postbox happened because of photography. One of the things I'd like to do is thank Srikan Uncle for referring me, giving me a very good referral for Facebook. One of the reasons why I'm there. I was there, rather. Next slide. Alright, I'm going to start off with a question to the audience. How many people do you think managed the world's largest collaborative database of photographs in 2011? The answer is 1.5 people, and it was Facebook. One person who took care of the entire backend coding and infrastructure, and half a person for UI. So how we measure people in Facebook is on hours, not in terms of, so 4 hours for this and 4 hours for something else. The second question is, when WhatsApp crossed 1 billion, next, sorry. When WhatsApp crossed 1 billion Android downloads, WhatsApp had only 5 people behind that. One of the things which I'm going to talk about in the next couple of slides is how the experience at tech companies in Silicon Valley and the way they go about doing business is very, very different in terms of how lean they are as organizations, and how well they sort of articulate what needs to get done in how much time, and how fast they move, essentially. I joined Facebook in 2011, and these were the 5 mottos by which Facebook works. Move fast and break things. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Nothing at Facebook is someone else's problem. We are a culture of builders, and fail harder. This photograph, this photograph was taken when I was sent to Menlo Park, the headquarters of Facebook, to work with the engineering team to build out something called page policy. It was a team of 3 members, which was going to be based out of Hyderabad, but needed engineering support from the headquarters. Only because the Indian government at that time did not give us access to, we couldn't build our infrastructure here as well as we could. Mark sits with his core team, Chris Cox, Sheryl Sandberg, Andrew Bosworth, and a couple of others. All of them take care of the product teams, UI, sales, and marketing, and ads. If you ask me, Sheryl Sandberg is the actual backbone of Facebook and not Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is a product guy. The money comes in from Sheryl Sandberg, even today. So the next slide. This is a hackathon. Pardon me for the picture, but this was taken after about 10 months of me being in the company. We do something in Facebook where quarterly the entire team sits for 24 hours and we hack on one project. As in, people get together and they decide one project they want to work on. It can be cross-functional. So we decided to work on, this is me and Dhruv working on a project for Turkish American ads. So ads set up in Turkey but running in America, stealing stolen financial credit card information to run further ads. So we sort of worked with the user operations team to, the goal was to essentially take down the users, which will automatically take down the advertisers. So I spent the whole night essentially working with the team trying to take that out. What happened soon after that was Dhruv and me moved to the ads fraud team, where, it sort of, can go to the next slide. So this is something I live by constantly. We moved to the ads fraud team. I think of experiences as something where you have to constantly learn. So I felt like I wanted to learn more about ads and the ecosystem. I spent the first 1 year learning about policy and ad review, and I wanted to go into fraud and see what I can do there. So I spent the next 1 year doing that. Megha, my boss, has extremely strong, the previous slide. Yeah. Megha, my boss, had extremely strong instinctive abilities. So it became easier for all of us to come together and talk to her about an idea we had and to see if it worked, because she's very receptive to the idea of something new. at that age, even when we were 23 years old. She was 28 and she was managing a team of about 10 of us. Today she heads Uber Ops in Bangalore, and we still keep in touch, but not as much as I would like to. So Megha walked in one day and she came and told us, hey, Nikhil and Dhruv, we want you to essentially, this is after about 2 years of us working in ads fraud, we want to set up the ads page policy team from Hyderabad, and it's going to be a 3-member team, and you and Nikita and Dhruv will be taking over this project, and it's extremely important that and Nimulan will be taking care of this project. You need to head to Austin in 1 month, start preparing, because what you're going to be doing is taking work in projects which are being worked on in America and bring them back to India, and that the Americans are not going to like. And the onus is on you guys to fly down and sell the idea of Indians taking over this project. So she was extremely gutsy like that, and it sort of rubbed off on all of us, like, you know, all right, she wants to do something really tough, but let's try and figure out. On the way, I learned SQL, regular expressions, which were fed into the models during my tenure of 1 year at Page Policy. So Page Policy is the next slide. So just to give you an impact of what Page Policy is, at that point of time in 2014, there were 180 million pages, but only 69 of them were active pages. The rest of them were dormant pages. And what these dormant pages would do is essentially sell weapons, pornography, indulge in child predator, you know, they used to be child predators, selling of women, so on and so forth. So what we had to do as a team of 3 was to try and figure out how to automate this as quickly as possible, because Facebook is scaling really fast. So how do we try and automate and train a model, work with Accenture, who are our partners at that time, in terms of giving us you know, contract workers, and figure out how, you know, we can sort of automate this as quickly as possible. So we automated 69 million pages, 62 to 69 million pages in a couple of regular expressions which we came about. Now, it's what they do essentially is they change page names very often, and they use these page names to sort of maneuver Facebook's ML models. So we had to figure out SQL code and all of that stuff to take out these pages and then, you know, sort of just make the system much better and more robust and much more scalable for the good guys who want to get much better things out of the platform. That was the other part we were also taking care of. I ended Facebook on a high. My last assignment was the general elections of 2014. I worked with Ritesh Mehta, who is also one of the investors at Postbox. He used to take care of user ops at Facebook India. He was ex-Google as well. He set up a 10-member team, and we worked with AAP, BJP, Congress, Samajwadi Party, and a lot of other parties to give them real-time data on how their Facebook pages were doing and what each office in each constituency was doing with their Facebook pages. What were they communicating to the public? How should they communicate to the public? What ads should be run? How is the engagement on the pages? So we would send out automated emailers to them every single day during general elections on what was happening till it got over. That was extremely important. So it was a closed room sort of experience for about 2 months before the elections getting wrapped up. So so in all of this, one of the good things about working at a company like Facebook is you have bosses who are passionate about multiple things. It could be cycling, it could be running, it could be art. So for me it was photography, and one of the things which I liked doing was taking some time off and going and taking a couple of photographs or attending masterclass workshops whenever I had the time, and you know, to take my mind off. Megha was very receptive of that, so she gave me about 2 to 3 weeks off every other quarter to go and explore. This was in the Himalayas. The next slide. This was in the Himalayas. I was with Yannick Romier and Varun Gupta, 2 masterclass photographers. Yannick was a French fashion photographer who moved to Mylapore in India after one of his visits. Varun is a Bengali photographer, so we were documenting Ladakh for a couple of couple of weeks, 3 weeks. My inspirations are Poochi Venkat, Yanni Cramier, and Krishna D. Mellu. I had the opportunity to be in a masterclass workshop with Krishna D. Mellu. As a person, this is one of her works, which is where basically she converted the spam emails which she received into photographs, and she won many awards for it all across the world for this work of hers. So I spent 2 weeks with her in Missouri, where she taught me different ways of documenting a place in terms of portraits, inside landscapes, so on and so forth. So it was more of a part-time. Poochi Venkat, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of him. Yeah, I used to stay at Dakshin Chitra with him on the weekends, and archive files for him and help him with his artwork at Dakshin Chitra. So he taught me a lot about the foundations of photography, which I later used multiple ways. Yeah, you can just there's a couple of photographs. This is in Calcutta. Next. This is Lucknow, Dobighat. This is in Kumbh. A story about this photograph I had. I had access. I went to the Mahakumbh Mela, which happens once in 144 years. We stayed in a tent for about 2 weeks, and this was taken. I had to climb. So you have the agoris on one end, and you have the normal public on the other end. And the public is about 18 million people. So there's a fence. There's a 6 feet long fence, which high fence, which separates the two. So I climbed on top of the fence and I took this photograph. The next, you can see a better picture. This is how it was on the other side. So the speakers were basically used to. This was in the water when they were sort of taking their holy dip. Yeah. So this is in New York. This is in New York in the Manhattan. Next. Yeah. So after Kumbh was a set of 10 photographers, and one of the aims was to photograph work or create work which would later go into an exhibition. We did not know whether we would get a gallery, so we had to pitch the idea of curating a bunch of photographs and then sending it to a gallery and seeing if they are up for the idea of something like this. At that time, the Uttarakhand floods were happening, so we decided to pitch that as an idea. All the proceeds would go to the Uttarakhand flood. So we had our photographs put up at the Kinkini Art Gallery in Bangalore. So it was a pretty good experience. So yeah, so this was one experience which sort of. There were a lot of seasoned photographers, and there was me, and the essence of this was, is it time? It's time, right?
This is phone.
Okay. Yeah, so one of the things which I really realized from this is how amateur artists are treated in India, not as well as the senior artists. So there's no sort of, there's so much budding talent in India at this point of time in terms of design and art, but there's no platform for them to showcase their work. So that was the starting point for me to think of an idea of whether we can do something with these amateur artists based on the City School of Design, NIFT, NID, before they even, as a sort of validation, a platform to validate their work and see if that will work. So I pitched this idea to a friend of mine who I met along with a bunch of other people. She had just finished her design from NAFA in Singapore, and the idea was to set up a platform to showcase artists across multiple mediums again. Showcase their work across multiple mediums. I quit in August. The exhibition was in July. I quit in August and I started in September. While I was working at Facebook, I parallelly started the platform. And we started off as a platform for artists to showcase their work on multiple mediums. We had from cushion covers to table mats to notebooks to cups. So that was how we started off. And you can see a few references of what we did. Yeah, we put up our products in a couple of stores across the country. So that was a pretty good. Yeah. So then, after setting it up, my co-founder had moved to Marangoni in Milan for her Masters in Fashion Management, and I had taken it up here in Chennai. One of the things I wanted to do is, because I had immediately set it up without much research, but just an idea, I wanted to do some research. So I decided to travel across the country. I traveled to Bangalore, Bombay, New Delhi and Gurgaon. I set up meetings, cold called a couple of people, understood a couple of interesting things. Do you know which type of lamp sells the most in India?
Flow lamps.
Yeah, it's the flow lamps. So that's something which I didn't know. So I met one of the foremost lamp sort of prototype designers in India, which they have their own prototyping studio in Bangalore. And I cold emailed him and said, hey, listen, I want to come and meet you. And I met him and I spent some time and I understood which type of lamp sells the most. So that was an idea which I came back to Chennai. I went to Pondicherry, pitched the idea and got 5 flow lamps. And I sort of put it up on the platform. Apart from that, in my other meetings, I stayed in an art residency in Bombay. I spoke to artists and designers in Gurgaon. I wanted to understand from the community what they truly wanted to see in terms of art and design from a platform like this in India. At my time when I started, there were 2 other startups, Cupic and Culture Shop. Culture Shop was very high-end. Cupic was a marketplace. I was a curated platform where I and my co-founder would sit and we would sit and curate artists to showcase their work. We didn't really want to be a marketplace or very high-end. We wanted to be very accessible. So can you go to the next slide? So then comes the million-dollar question: how do you plan to scale? When you work in a company like Facebook, one of the things you realize is you're constantly wondering on how to increase app downloads, how to improve their UI UX design in such a way that someone wants to create an ad. How do you negate the impressions your page post is going to show so that the person runs an ad and you make revenue? In Q4 of 2018, Facebook made $16 billion in 3 months. So that's the scale of their operations, and they're not a very big team. When I joined, there were 1,500 people. Today, they're about 40,000 plus 20,000 contract workers. 40,000 people plus 20,000 contract workers. So it's a great experience. So we realized that we need to scale. One of the things is I sort of realized that our idea was too far-fetched in terms of from the concept stage. For example, if you go to a home center and you pick up a cushion cover, you get a cushion cover at $295 and it's really nice. But if I had to create art, take an art piece from a designer and then put it on a cushion cover, the cost of manufacturing for me, because I'm not at scale right now, will be at about $375. Because I cannot hold that kind of volume. So how do you scale something which you don't yet have a market for? Was a question which I continuously asked myself. I only sold about 20 notebooks from 2 pop-ups. You can go to the next slide. I traveled again in April and May to Jaipur and to Agra to meet block printers and other artisans to understand whether we can bring about artisans into the foray and try and figure out if we can, make it more contemporary as per the new age India's liking for something in balance between traditional and modern. So we launched terracotta and cane, and we launched block printed bags. Something we started off with, home accessories. Became a big hit. We from 20 orders, we were getting about 1,200 orders a month with just one shift of being a product company and not an art company where we've designed product design and not essentially doing artwork. So this is my first pivot. You can go to the next slide. So in September 2015, I launched my first laptop bag, and it was with hand-woven ikat. I sold 389 pieces in the first month of launch. The reason being, it was a functional product, it was an everyday use product, It had handloom, which was very close to the Indian heart. It had leather, and it was very economical. So it was very accessible. So this became.
Sorry, what was the price?
The price of this was 249. 249.
2009.
Yeah. So we sell pan India even today. 90% of our orders came from Delhi, Gurgaon, Bombay. Only 10% came from down south. So we literally sell You can go to the next slide. Our first pivot was creating and celebrating product design from India for the world. We moved away from artists. We started phasing out all of our artists because I realized very quickly that's not going to help me as a business model. We're not going to be able to grow anywhere. In fact, Cubic is shut down today, and Culture Shop has shifted from an online platform to an offline sort of model. So we worked. One of the things we did was, instead of working with artists, we worked with product designers who did not have a platform to scale, but who were fantastic. This guy is from the Northeast, Arpit Agarwal, and Kalakari Hath from Bombay. She's an interior designer who created artwork. Next by Arpit Agarwal is completely inspired by the Northeast. In fact, Vogue featured in this year. Kalakari Hath is today one of the biggest interior designers for Bombay. Very, very good interior designer. She does a lot of big 5-star hotels today. She does the murals for them. Commissioned work, service-based. Next. We were featured in Vogue and then El Decor for the products we had come up with. We worked with the lamp, which you see, the lantern is from the post box that was made by the artisans in Pondicherry, and then the terracotta cup, which was done in Calcutta. So this was a sort of it was fantastic. You know, we were doing really well for ourselves in terms of we had a market, we had an audience, everything was going well. But there was a small glitch. We didn't, and you'll see that in the next slide. The capital requirements were going up, and there was rising revenue, there was rising capital requirements, and there was no investor in sight. And what Madhu and me did was, we took our bags, we traveled all across Bangalore, Bombay, Chennai. We met a lot of investors, and most of them were not, ready to accept such an idea yet. One of the things they were really worried about was scale. How are you going to scale a terracotta cup from 100 cups to 10,000 cups to 1 lakh cups? And how are you going to sell that? Who's going to be a customer audience? It's a fair enough question to ask. So then, we really were plateauing now. Like, we were trying to figure out what needs to be done. Our revenue started going downward spiral after going up like a hockey stick. And then you do something which you would not imagine you would do in this lifetime. So I sent an email out to Mr. Tata, who started investing, and the only way to get Mr. Ratan Tata's attention is if you give an interesting subject. Otherwise, he's not going to read it. So I wrote this as my subject, and he replied back on the same day in the night. And after about 15 exchanges of us, I made it look very dramatic, because I had to get capital somehow or the other to make this function. So you have to do what it takes, you don't have a choice. He was in New York soon after this on some personal work, and he didn't reply back to me for a couple of times. So I kept being persistent about it, and I kept replying back. Finally I get a call from his secretary saying, do let me know when would be a good time to meet up with Mr. Tata since he's in town. So we met up with him, and it was probably the most interesting experience I've had so far. A 45-minute session, one-to-one with Mr. Tata. He walks in. I take 2 trolleys full of my products, like what I've been doing with every investor. I set it up on a table, and he looks at the products, and we don't realize, he keeps quiet. He sits down, he asks me for a cup of coffee, and then he's like, so what's the kind of leather you use? And why do you use press buttons instead of magnetic buttons? Magnetic buttons last longer. And why are you doing so much? Why can't you keep it more simple? So the entire conversation revolved around the fact that we were too small and we were doing too much too early. And we needed to focus on something, probably one vertical, which will probably be the game changer for us when we launch other verticals. So the meeting went off really well because he gave us some really strong feedback in terms of what he wanted Postbox to be like. It was very engaging for us. We were two young people, so meeting someone like him was a great experience. It was supposed to be a 20-minute meeting. The secretary walked in, he says, no, let me talk to them. Let me spend about 25 minutes more, and then we'll take it from there. He walked with us out to the elevator, he got into the car, and he made sure we were taken to where we needed to go. A very nice man. I think it'll be a great experience if you guys can meet him. He's an amazing guy. So we took his feedback, and then you can go to the next one. We decided we'll focus on two products. One is home and travel, and that's where we wanted to be, travel and home. One reason being, even we've seen our validation with travel with our laptop bags, and with our and we wanted to get into passport wallets and organizers and all of that. But we didn't have the capital for that. That's where Chennai Angels and all came in, and Ritesh Mehta and Aruna Ganeshram. We wanted to get into home because home was something which was very, very close to our heart. Like, we work with artisans, so that is something which is very, very nice for us to do. Along the way, before we had even received this funding, on the parallel lines, while I was having talks with investors and while I was meeting Mr. Arun Tata, there was one person who always wanted to catch up with us and understand what we were doing with our company, and that was Mr. Ramraj. He's sort of like, he's an amazing guy. Like, I've never met a guy who will actually sit down with you, who will spend time with you, reply back to you immediately, and I look up to him quite a lot. He essentially will look at you and he'll say, hey, you're not feeling right, there's something wrong with you, you need to figure out what you need to do with this product, and I'm ready to give my all, but I need to see 200% from what you can do with your brand because you have a lot of potential. So he sort of, motivated us to to keep pushing on. We met in Bangalore, we met when he was sick. In fact, one of the meetings was when he was in an Ayurvedic center. And I don't know how many of you know Mr. Ramraj, sir? Except yeah. He was in an Ayurvedic center, and we were not sure if we were going to meet him, and he actually took time. He was on his bed and he said, let's have a meeting right now and let's figure out what needs to be done. That was Mr. Prashant Shankaran as well, who was another mentor of ours. So Chennai Angels happened, and then you can go to the next slide. The rising cost, rising revenue model continued. The problem is, the textbook method of how to build a startup by growing exponentially, by not being worried about increasing burden on costs as we scale, and that we will become profitable eventually once we reach a certain point. Not necessarily true for all sort of enterprises and startups, as my experience has been over the last 4 years. You have a lot of hidden costs in e-commerce. As much as it's very rosy, it's also an extremely cost-consuming sort of business to be in. You have your logistics, your marketing, and your inventory. I'm an inventory-based model. I'm not a marketplace. There's a big difference between the two. A marketplace facilitates a seller to a buyer. An inventory-based model is design, manufacture, sell. We manufacture audited centers, we design in-house, and we sell it to consumers who we market to. It's a much more niche model. So positive unit economics was something which we wanted to move towards. 90% of our sales started going towards leather goods, and 10% of our sales were towards homeware. We want to slowly phase out of our artisans. As much as we didn't want to do it, it had to become a sort of, a rule if we wanted to exist in the environment and create impact in terms of design, which is what we want to do. We stand for design, and even today we stand for design. That's our core philosophy. So, I've just given a rough idea of unit economics, and that's what we are at today. A set of 2 ceramic cups from an online site, on my site is $729, and the logistics cost for that is $200. Let's say you don't like it, it's $400. So it's $600. You spend twice the amount, you give twice the amount to any logistics person for a return pickup. And that's why you don't see too many people involved in homeware And actually, that's why you have your home centers and your IKEA. If you see an IKEA in America, their logistics cost is still very high if you want them to ship to you. Their shipping costs are extremely high. Whereas the leather wallet which we sell today at 1,999, the logistics cost is only 35. So it sort of works for us, and we sort of realized that we need to move towards that sort of a model. Unfortunately, there were differences in opinion creeping up between my co-founder and I on how we need to scale this company, which is when she decided to leave the company. Yeah, so the entry, BBK came in, and I will talk about this part. This is a pretty interesting part. So yeah, BBK came in, and we were on our knees at this point in terms of working capital. We are exhausted what Chennai Angels have given us and what Ritesh Mehta and Aruna have given us, and the investors obviously wanted us to know what my next plan was since I was taking over. I reached out to multiple investors again. I'd gone back to square zero. We had to rewind some of the things we had done in the past, take a back seat, and sort of see, look at from a bird's eye view and see what needs to be done to be a sustainable enterprise for the coming years. And I'm not going to be quitting in 10 years. I'm going to be here for a while. So yeah, investors also coming in. So I called up a couple of my friends, and I told them, hey, this needs to be done. So do you have anybody in the industry who would be able to help out? I wanted somebody specifically in the leather industry because we were moving towards that. I met Bharat at a coffee shop and pitched to him. He's the son of BBK Exports. They are the top, they are India's third largest export house in terms of leather goods. They're based out of Ranipet. They basically export to Europe and America. They make for Echo shoes and Clarks. So yeah, some of their big clients. They also make for Zara. So I'm a small guy in front of them. So I met him, a very humble guy, extremely simple. It was great meeting him. Another person I really admire. All of 33, very enterprising, very soft spoken. He wanted to know what I had in mind and how I was going to tap into the very promising leather industry in India in terms of the niche space, niche consumer space. So we had Napa Dori, one competitor based out of Delhi. We had Dam Milano. Both were his friends. He knows both these guys. So, in fact, one of my meetings recently was him on a conference call with Dam Milano, but I was keeping quiet, trying to understand what they were doing. So we sort of, we spend a lot of time together even today on a weekly basis. But he came in and he was kind enough to buy out Madhu's stake completely. It was a tough call. On April 4th, I had to tell Chennai Angels what my stand was. On April 3rd, I had a meeting with Bhaskaran sir. On April 4th morning, Bhaskaran sir said yes to me. So it was really, really tough for me. So I went to Ranipet, met Bhaskaran sir. Bhaskaran sir again, Rack's Richer story. He used to work as a sweeper. He started BBK 30 years back and built it to a pretty big enterprise. So he sort of liked what we were trying to pitch, what I was trying to pitch to him, and he came in. And he also put in capital into the company apart from buying stake, which was also very, very nice of him to do. So then we had to scale back down and then make a plan to scale back up, which we're still doing. We're trying to scale back up to what we were at. One of the enablers to take a decision, our second pivot is right now, it's organized travel and homeware. Homeware is now obsolete. Functional design with purpose, essentially is what we're going to follow. Organized travel products. 96% of we phased out all product designers at this point, and we were a 100% platform with in-house design, manufacturing and selling. No more product designers, no more outside parties coming into the picture. Some of the enablers to take this decision is scaling horizontally across one vertical. Travel. Infrastructure support was very, very sound because of BBK. Delivery and service related issues were negligible because we were only selling on one vertical. And we wanted to move to a JIT system, which we are today. Our inventory is down to 40% from what we were last year. So we literally, if we get an order, we follow. You can go to the next slide. I'll be talking about that in the next slide after. Yeah, you can go. You can go to the next, before slide. Yeah. So today this is our factory in Kanchipuram. It's world class. We have all the facilities there to manufacture and scale up to 2,000 to 3,000 wallets per week. We get our support from CLRI, Central Leather Research Institute, which trains our workers. They've been there for 6 months now. So our story includes materials we work with, the community that inspires us. Today we ship pan India. Tomorrow, this end of February will be international. Yeah, so you can go to the next slide. So so what the future holds, just go to the previous slide. Yeah, so it's in June it will be 2 years since I've taken over, and we've had to scale down product lines and scale back up. This is something not just for TPB to merely exist as a platform, but also, I want to exist. We need to create a brand out of India. Napadori is the only brand right now, and creating brands is very, very tough. Napadori is 8 years old. We are only 4, and it's going to be a long haul in terms of establishing ourselves. But it's something which is going to reap benefits very, very later on. So this has been phenomenal so far. With the kind of unit economics we have right now, we'll probably end this year at our highest since we started Postbox. And that's only because of our focus on a single vertical and continuous obsession with that. So every product we launch is travel right now. We don't maneuver out of that. What's happened is, because of that, we also get a few corporate clients. The problem is, because we're premium, corporate clients come only in the niche space. So we get YouTube, we get Facebook, we get Uber as our corporate clients. We have Accenture, we have Pfizer, we have Ford India, who comes to us. Off late they haven't been coming. We have Nissan and Tata Motors. But they all come in small batches. They don't order like 1,000 pieces, they order like 100 pieces for an event, and then it comes in batches. But it's good, it's good. So the next, and what the future of niche e-commerce is, narrate great stories, and this is where Gin System comes into the picture. Push and pull marketing, which is what we follow right now. We push a product out, we narrate a great story about the product, and then we pull the audience to the product. We get at least 50 to 100 orders, and then BBK is at the same time manufacturing the product. And we sort of measure the amount of products we need. So we look at data for a week or two, and then we sort of project and forecast how much we will need for the next 2 weeks. So we sell like that to prevent our inventory. Omnichannel experience, extremely important. Something which I know it's very cost intensive, but the benefits of that is it's pretty amazing. Tata Click is moving towards that. Your Reliance is moving towards that. It's the next form of retail sort of experiences which the niche companies want to give consumers. Label Life is moving towards that. Napadori, my competitor, is already in that. They have 6 stores, and Nicobar has about 4 stores. So in the long run, it really pays off because you give a very, very different experience. It's extremely popular right now in US, where you have brands like Everlane, Sienna, and all of them were online brands which this year have set up offline stores. And all the mass brands like Gap and Levi's have cut down on their retail outlets and moved to more experience centers in US. So vice versa is happening. It's how you sort of position your store and how you want to give the experience you want to give. Third is international markets. It's time for India to go global, and I think we can create. Louis Vuitton is made in Guinea. Burberry is made in Guinea. So there's no reason why we should not go out there. It's made by this group called KH. Personalized automation, something which we already do. So we look at consumers and we look at their trends, and we send automated emails as to what they should buy from us. We already do that to all of our consumers. We look at history of purchases, we look at drop-off rates, and we look at new product launches and how it will fit a certain budget for a certain audience, and we hit the consumer with an email. over than SMS. Right now it's that. We also spend a lot of our time calling up people, calling up our most loyal customers. So we have a guy who purchases about every 2 months about 15,000, 20,000. He'll come and he'll purchase and he'll get out. And every time he put an experience show in, let's say, Bangalore, we have pop-ups which we do now, which are basically a modern word for exhibitions, where we showcase it's a curated sort of event, where we showcase our products, and these guys walk in and take a look at our products. So we do quite a lot of that, which I will talk about in our next slide. Top 5 things I've learned thus far: speak and listen to your target audience, know what they want before you get to the drawing board. I use social media for this. I do a lot of polls, a lot of sort of surveys to understand. We go to the sort of intricate details of understanding what a man would carry in a shoe care kit. So we understand what they will carry and we design accordingly, and what they need and in a toiletry kit. We don't want to create products which are already there in the market, so we try and innovate in terms of the entire UI experience. No shortcuts in terms of branding your story, so I will show that in some screenshots. Build a strong, dependable team. I do not go to my logistics office at all. The fulfillment team sits out of another office, about 2 streets away from mine. I visit them probably once in 2 weeks, once in 3 weeks, because they are sort of autopilot. The order comes in and they ship it out the same day if the product is in store. Otherwise, they call up the factory and the product comes in the next 2-3 days and we ship it out. So I don't take care of that at all. Very, very strong team there, which has been built up very well. Enjoy the process. In spite of all of this, one of the things I consciously do every day is sit with the design team and see what they're doing, what they are ideating on, because that's our core strength. This year we signed an MOU with NIFT Chennai, and the head of the department comes to my office twice a month to overlook our product strategy in terms of where we are placed, to see if we are doing the right things. Chalpati sir is very, very efficient. In fact, we are traveling to the factory this week. His first factory visit to see how good the quality of our construction of the wallets are. So he wants to take a look at that. So yeah, the next. So this is when I say narrating your story. What we do on Instagram, which is the future of brands showcasing products and telling stories, is day 1 and day 413 of a leather goods product which we have, and showcasing how the leather has aged. Now, if this was a PU product, by now it would have sort of worn out. But this has aged well, and we are a leather goods company. So it's really important for us to make sure all the leathers are intact. We have the right quality. So we talk a lot about that. So I say in 2017, in the month of December, when we had our annual Christmas pop-up at the brew room right here, one of our employees started using the pen and pencil trunk case for her designs. And today it's like this. Next. We have one thing which is very popular in the US is, apart from product experiences which they want to deliver, they also do storytelling about niche brands they are inspired by. So I have a photographer who travels, and I spend not much money, but I spend some money to tell her to, and I make her travel across South India to narrate great stories of brands which are doing something very similar to us in some other element, but which we are inspired by, and it resonates with the audience we are part of. This is in Chinnamalai, I think off Erode, where there were 1 lakh weavers once upon a time. Today there are a handful of weavers, and this brand's name is Nool by Hand. They have set up a sort of a factory with these weavers inside the factory and given state-of-the-art equipment. And now their denim, which gets woven here, is worn by people in Europe. And they're setting up a massive sort of unit there in the hills. It's fantastic. It's a great story. It's up on our website if you ever want to take a look. This is our factory, a close-up picture of bright opening spaces. What happens is, when consumers see where your products are being made, they sort of really engage with the brand at another level. So you see that comment, right? I don't think I've seen any other brand page and put up something like this. Glad to know you're taking care of your employees well. that much is enough for brands to sort of for customers, to really get trust that you're doing the right thing at the right place for the right people. So it's something we do very often. In fact, from next month onwards, we also plan to share where we get our products made and the address and a story about the factory on our website, so that it's more transparent. Relevance in terms of products we design. The OnePlus 60 has just been launched, and we launched a mobile case for that with a wallet, but it was not fitting the OnePlus 60. We had launched a regular size, and the OnePlus 60 is a little large. So if you see the comments at the side, launching soon for OnePlus, and OnePlus 60 is what they commented, but waiting soon for OnePlus 60, waiting soon for when the 60 wallet's launching. So we realized from this that one of the things which we took out of this is that OnePlus 60 is probably one of the best-selling phones out there in the Indian market right now. They've really killed it because most of our sales now is from the larger unit of this. And obviously our market is again North India, but incredible sales of this product. Next. I do an AMA with my audience. I do an Ask Me Anything with my audience, where an audience can ask me any sort of question about anything related to the products or the story or the idea which we have. So this is a person who on our Instagram who's asked me this question, so I reply back. Next. Do you handle your social media content in-house? Love your posts. I don't believe in agencies, so I'm just telling you that our agencies, they can go wrong in terms of social media. And the true story comes out when people actually working inside the company narrate their story rather than getting people to do it, because sometimes it's just bullshit half the time. It's very generic stuff which they put up for a post. So yeah, that's the end of the slide, and looking forward to an exciting 2019. Any questions? I'm sorry if I...
Yeah, sure.